Hey there, welcome to Bandit's Keep. I'm Daniel. In this video, we're going to talk about legendary monsters, or legendary horror monsters for October. Okay, so here we are. We're going to create kind of a couple of different scenarios, 3 actually, I believe, and we're going to cover what I will consider kind of classic Halloween-y or horror kind of monsters, how I would use them in the game, why I would use them. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the general aspects here. One of the issues that we will have when we're running a game like Dungeons and Dragons is that even if you're running an OSR game with low hit points or whatever, the characters are still kind of heroic, right? They are somebody who seeks out danger, somebody who fights monsters on a day-to-day basis. That's what the characters are. So in order to get the true horror feel, we need to put them in situations or places where they can't just pull their sword out and fight things. So instead, I'm going to treat each of these monsters as kind of like a puzzle. That is, they'll need to figure out a way to beat the monster besides just hitting it with their sword. So the first monster we're going to talk about is the Headless Horseman. You know, the one in Sleepy Hollow, that one. So not the Warren Zevon. Anyways, in this story, there's basically a ghost of a soldier whose head was taken off in a battle. They died, basically, and they haunt this bridge. They ride back and forth across the bridge at night. I think it's under the full moon or on Halloween or whatever it is. And they're looking to replace their head, right, by killing people. This is the story. So how do we make this work in D&D? What I think we need to do is set this up as a legend. And the way we can best do that is to have the player characters be from somewhere else. That is, in the original story, Ichabod is not from that community, right? So he learns of the story. It's new to him. And I think the best way to do this, or the simplest way, is to have the PCs sent on kind of one of those basic low-level missions that you get sent on. The king, the mayor, the count, the ruler of the domain, whatever, ask the party to go to this area and investigate because some merchants' wagons have been raided, going over this bridge area, and it's kind of far away, so they're going to go out there and kind of take care of business. They're hired because they're adventurers. They're used to fighting things like goblins and kobolds and stuff, and they're suspecting that it's probably some gang of bandits or some goblins or something, and this is a new trade route, and they want to make sure that it works, and if not, they'll have to redirect, which is a big pain in the butt. So the party is going to get hired to take care of this problem. Classic low-level adventure hook. The party travels several days, and at this point, I would make sure that it's made clear, like, don't roll for random monsters. Make sure the landscape seems really nice. Point out, don't just talk about it in one phrase. Have them meet people, kindly people, so they can ask them if things are going on. Let's be clear that there's not goblins and kobolds and bandits around the area. So when they arrive at the town to find out what's going on, they'll start interacting with people. Some people will not want to talk about it at all. Some people will say, oh, yeah, we don't know. Maybe there's bandits. And some people will tell the story. The story of a rebel leader from this area who defended the town against this domain ruler or king or whatever you want to call it. Not them, but their ancestors hundreds of years ago. Well, they were killed on this bridge that the pass is going over now. They were beheaded and their head was taken and it was hung as part of a scarecrow in a nearby pumpkin patch. Okay? Now it haunts the bridge. So, of course, the party's going to want to go out there and investigate. And what they will, in fact, find is an apparition. Well, it'll be solid, but they'll find the horsemen. The horsemen will try to fight them if they go across the bridge. Anybody who wants to go over the bridge is going to be attacked. And they'll probably have to retreat back from the combat, but they might even win. And if they do, it's fine because the horsemen will just keep coming back. Because here, it's not about killing the horsemen and walking away and being done with it. Here, it's about solving the problem, solving the curse, which is that this person's head was never properly buried, never properly put to rest. So that's why it's a ghost, right? It's a ghost story. Now, for me, I would make the horsemen themselves a wight. Now, wights have a level draining ability, which is pretty deadly, especially on low levels. And what I would probably do is use that level draining only when they throw the pumpkin head, right? So if they're going to have one time where they can throw that pumpkin head, and if it hits, it's a level drain. Otherwise, when they normally kind of run by with their horse and maybe they'll have a saber or something, they'll just do regular damage. The reason why I like a white for this is because it needs special weapons to hit. So if they go out there just thinking they're going to fight goblins and bandits, they're not going to really be geared up necessarily with silver or magic or whatever to fight this thing. So it'll put them in a situation where they'll need to interact with the ghost once and then leave and then come back. This is important. Part of the reason why it's important is because if they don't go to the tavern at first and get the rumors and know what's going on, they just go right to the bridge and stake it out, this will make them want to go back and ask questions. Or if they just don't do enough digging at the tavern where the story doesn't come out, now they'll be able to get the story. So once they know this is going on, hopefully the party will put together that they need to put this thing to rest. Perhaps if they can't figure it out, the horseman, the second time they interact with them, yells, "I need my head," or maybe a cleric can make a roll. It depends on your party and how they're going to do it. Hopefully that will be enough of a hint, right? The next step of this is they're going to have to go to this ancient pumpkin patch and figure out where the skull is, because, it got put up as a scarecrow 150 years ago. It, eventually fell into the dirt and has been buried, right? So they're going to have to locate it again. How they do that is going to be up to your group and what they can figure out. Once they have it, they simply put it to rest. Good to go. Simple as that, right? It's a puzzle. They can't really solve it by just killing the horseman, because if they do, and the horseman disappears, hopefully they are smart enough to stick around another day, because if they kill the horseman, then just go and leave the area, they'll find out merchants are still being attacked. So again, the setup here is really that this bridge has always been here, but it hasn't been a trade route for this domain because there hasn't been, let's say, an alliance on the other side. Now there is. So this is an important location. This is going to give the party not only probably some treasure as a reward for doing this, but a connection with the domain leader, the king, whoever's here. So it's going to give them some credibility, shall we say, in the domain. So it's building on more than just the treasure. So I think it's interesting in that way. Also, obviously, people that live in the village will be happy to be able to cross that bridge. There's lots of things going on here that can be really great to help build up as part of a campaign. It's not just go in, kill something, leave, but it can just be that, right? It can very well easily be that they go down, they fight this thing, and they get rid of it, and then they get their reward, they move on. So it's a good kind of open-ended, sandboxy feel. I think this will be really fun to play. I'm going to do something like this. Possibly by the time this video goes live, I will have done it already, but I'm going to be running it in Boot Hill. So that'll be really fun. Number 2, this legendary monster is, I think, becoming more and more common. Years ago, you'd hear once in a while. Now, almost every Halloween type season, I hear of the Wendigo. So the Wendigo is a creature of the indigenous people of North America, a legend of them. And there's lots of different ways it's presented, but basically it almost always has something to do with greed and hunger. So this is my setup. The PCs are traveling in the winter through mountain passes, and a storm is coming in. They see a village in the distance, kind of huddled in a valley. They head down to the village in the valley, and they see a small amount of people reluctant to have anybody stay. They're maybe not explaining exactly why, but they're just like, you shouldn't stay here, move on. It's only 12 more hours to the next village, whatever they want to say. And then, of course, they'll realize the storm is coming in and that they're basically sending the PCs to their death if they do that. So they will let the PCs stay eventually. When they do, they just very specifically say, we do not have any food or drink for you, though. You're going to have to use your rations. And of course, the PCs will have rations. Maybe they'll even give some rations to the village. They might be able to pick up some more information from them, but what they'll get is that many of the rations were stolen or destroyed, something to that effect. They'll be vague. That night, the PCs will hear some screaming or whatever. They'll get up to help, probably. They'll find one of the villagers who they had interacted with, who was guarding the food stash, is dead, and some of the food is missing. Seems like the person is partially eaten. Now they get the story. A Wendigo is attacking the village. It is greedy and wants all the food. It wants the village to die and suffer. It wants the village to become cannibals. This is true on some level, but the real truth of it is, last winter, the village turned away a family. Somebody who worked on the outskirts of the village, somebody who they knew but didn't live in the village, but storms came, and this man and his wife and 2 kids or whatever were unable to fend for themselves. They came to the village for mercy, for charity. The village did not give them that. Then the man felt the only thing he could do was to sneak in and steal some food, and when he tried to do it, he was killed. His body hung up in the village to freeze in the winter. while his family outside the village watched in terror. They perished, possibly, depending on how dark you want to get, having gone to cannibalism, as maybe the whoever survived the longest ate the other ones, but eventually the family dies. And the man is just obviously thrown in the woods to be eaten by wolves or whatever. Now he comes back to haunt the village. So this Wendigo creature is coming, and it wants the village to suffer like he did, to starve, to watch their families die. There's only like 3 more days worth of food left in the village. Basically, the PCs are more or less trapped there. I mean, I suppose they could just trek off through the snow, but hopefully they're going to want to help. And they've got to figure out what they can do. Insofar as the Wendigo is concerned, as far as stats, I would make the Wendigo a 4 hit die monster, or maybe 4+ hit die monster, but it's a ghoul. So it has the paralysis ability, and it's immune to sleep, charm, whatever. It doesn't want to kill the player characters, at least not at first. So if the player characters confront it, it will just try to paralyze them, but it will try to kill one of the villagers. They might be able to push it off, right? For every day they push it off, give a half a day's more food because it didn't steal that bit, right? So if they do prevent it from stealing the one night, it will just keep coming back. It's going to keep coming back until something's solved. And in the end, this is a role play scenario for the most part. What we want in the end is for the village to actually admit what they did, where the Wendigo actually came from, how it was created, and then the village elder, the one who made the choice to have this man killed and just thrown into the woods and let his family suffer, who of course is going to be the last person standing, the last one to live. That village elder must confess to the Wendigo creature itself what it did and ask for mercy. You can play it up any way you want. Perhaps when he does that, the Wendigo then runs off in the darkness. Maybe it kills him, then runs off in the darkness. However you want to play it out. But the idea here is this is of somebody admitting that they did something wrong. And this is definitely a very, very heavy roleplay scenario. There's going to be that quick and violent combat, but really it's about the party figuring out what's going on here. So you want to make like 8 to 10, maybe 12 villagers that you can, give a little bit of information about, so you can do this kind of back and forth, Agatha Christie investigation thing, have some of them slip with information, have the party investigate where the Wendigo goes to. Maybe they can find the bones, right? Because maybe the Wendigo collected his family's bones and put it all together, that kind of thing. So they can figure it out. There's something going on here. And then they're going to have to get the headman to effectively confess and sacrifice himself for the village. If in the end they can't figure it out and all the villagers die, then eventually the snow will kind of melt enough and the PCs can move on and they failed. It's easy enough. It'll be weird. It'll be mysterious. You could always tell them about it if you want after the fact, so they know what happened. But it's one of those situations, again, where this is going to be a low level adventure. This is why I'm saying a ghoul. First, second level, so they're not going to have like divination or make somebody tell the truth or whatever, any kind of spells like that. They're going to have to figure it out with their heads. Okay, this third one is based on one of my favorite horror movies, The Exorcist. So there are no demons and devils in Basic Expert D&D. And frankly, using a demon for this or the devil is probably not the best thing to do anyways. The way I see it is this. The party comes into a village, or maybe they've been there, whatever. So these could be NPCs they know from the past. This is one you could set up, right? You could set this up a few months in advance where they meet some people in a village, they go through villages, and then as they're coming back, this happens. Little girl has gone off to some nearby ruins where the kids play, and maybe the parents don't know the kids play there, but the kids go there and they play. And she found an object. She thought it was beautiful. She brought it back to her house. And then when she did, the soul of the wizard who had magic jarred himself into this object jumps into the little girl. He has been trapped in the jar for like 300 years. He doesn't know where he is really. He's kind of mad. So that's how you're going to get the demon effect. Like it's going to act weird. It's not just going to be like, I'm the wizard and walk away. It's going to be acting weird and bizarre. Really play this up so the party in the town thinks they're possessed, at least at the beginning, right? And this is another one where it's kind of an investigation. The other kids are going to know about the ruins, but maybe the adults don't. So hopefully the party can find the object, figure out what it might be with maybe a detect magic or whatever, or just suss it out, figure out where it might have come from, go to that location and see if they can find some solutions. I would recommend having the magic user, that the mad magic user be like 12th, 13th, maybe even 14th level. They got to be at least, I think, 9th level to cast Magic Jar to start with. But you want to give them a bunch of spells. but they're not going to have their spell book, right? So when they go into the little girl, they'll have spells and they can be randomly casting them and stuff to make it really nuts. And maybe that will actually help the PCs figure it out if like spells are being cast. But there's going to be a spell book out in the ruins. So that's going to give the PCs some leverage to hopefully get the magic user to agree to go back into the jar and free the girl. And then maybe they can make some kind of a deal where somebody else can take the soul of the wizard. Maybe a person who's going to die anyways, maybe like a condemned criminal or somebody captured, whatever works in your world as like a moral, lawful judgment. But the idea here is going to be to get the wizard to go get out of her body and go back into the jar. Because the only other way to really do it, besides convincing him, would be something like a dispel magic. But you're going to have to be pretty high level to dispel magic against that high level wizard and make sure it's going to work. So that's kind of the quick, easy solution is dispel magic. The better solution, again, is role play. This is how we get the exorcist, right? This girl's in this room. She's acting weird. The party has to go in and meet with her. And, she's like, oh, the light, and says things, whatever, however PG rated or R rated or you want to make it. But the wizard can say all kinds of crazy stuff and really make it messed up for the players. So that eventually, though, through outside investigation, not just dealing with the wizard himself in the girl's body, they should be able to figure out what went on. Ruined wizard tower. They find a spell book. They even see the magic jar spell in the book, right? They can put it together with a read magic spell. So, again, another investigation. Now, what I should have said at the beginning, but I'll say it now, because if you got this far and you're going to run these, all of these, well, maybe not the Headless Horseman as much, can get pretty dark pretty quickly. I guess the story of the Headless Horseman being beheaded is pretty dark, but that might be standard fare for most D&D. But in any case, they're all pretty dark. Make sure that you have some conversations and really know your group before you start introducing things like children being possessed, demons and devils, murder, which I guess murder is a pretty common thing in D&D, but still cannibalism. These things can be very dark. So make sure that you've got the right group and they're on board with this kind of stuff. Well, I would love to know if you've used any of these monsters, or have you used other legendary monsters in your games where the party kind of figures it out, like, oh, this is the Headless Horseman or whatever. I would love to hear that in the comments. If you haven't already, check the description down there for a link to my Discord server. Come on over, let's chat monsters, RPGs, and all kinds of other goodness over there. And you can also support the channel via Patreon. There's a link to that in the show notes as well. Please subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, share this video, do a dance, all kinds of... I'll talk to you soon.